Debbyites. I'm here with Marcus Dixon and David Buchanan. We're here to talk about the Good Wife series finale. Now, a few days have passed since it aired, and we've had time to think about it. And we're just going to give you our reactions, and then we're going to talk about the Good Wife generally, what it means to us, and also its Emmy prospects for its final season. So I'll start. I saw the Good Wife finale, and I got to be honest, my reactions were kind of mixed. I liked parts of it, I didn't like parts of it, and I was left a little bit cold. But that being said, it did stay with me, and over a few days I have been thinking about it, and parts of it have stayed with me more than I expected them to. I'm going to you, Marcus. What was your reaction to the finale?
A little of the same. I mean, it had its really good moments. I think we can all agree on that. But I think overall, I'm just speaking for myself, but I kind of wanted more. I wanted more from the finale. And I guess it's the question maybe you guys know, I don't really know. Were the writers given enough time to end it? Or were they like officially canceled and the writers had to like scramble to come up with the finale? Do you guys know?
No, the Kings knew that they were leaving at the end of this year, regardless of whether or not CBS wanted to continue. So they've had this endpoint in mind pretty much since the beginning, and I think they executed it exactly as they wanted to.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I think they did have enough time. My understanding is they had enough time. CBS gave them that lead time to say, okay, so this is going to be your last season. The Kings are leaving. We're just going to call it quits. And I think this is exactly how the Kings wanted to end it. And I see what they were trying to achieve, but there were some aspects of it that really disappointed me. David, what did you think of the finale generally?
As soon as I finished watching it, I don't know if I was just so emotionally invested in the hour, but I loved it when it ended. And now that it's like 4 days out and I've been thinking about it every day, I'm kind of tempering my opinion a little bit, but mixed but positive. I'm definitely on the side that liked it more than the side that hated it.
Well, let's talk about what worked about the episode. I think, look, I didn't have any spoilers at all, which is really great.
Yeah.
And when I saw Josh Charles reappear as, Ghost Will, I loved it. I loved seeing him again. I just think he brings so much to the show. The show suffered when he left, and I loved that part. And maybe some people might have thought that whole sequence of scenes was stupid. Him, the ghost of Will, telling Alicia what to do going forward. But I really loved it because those two work so beautifully together. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I loved it. I was kind of spoiled. I think TV Line had a spoiler about him coming back, but I didn't know how he would come back, if it was a dream or a vision or a flashback or whatever. I do think they maybe overused him, which is weird because everyone wanted him to come back to the show, and now that he's back, I'm complaining we had too much of Will. But no, it was great. And I think the scene where I guess it was a dream of hers where she went through the door 3 times. The first time was Jason, then Peter, then Will. I think that was a really good moment. I mean, at the end of the day, The Good Wife was about Alicia and her work life and her family life and her love life. So there had to be something like that in the finale.
David.
Yeah, I thought I agree, Marcus. I thought there was maybe one scene too many with Will. The first few had such great impact, and then I really didn't think we were going to see him again, and maybe they just took it a little bit too far in that last scene in the apartment where he's literally instructing her on what to do. It was a nice moment of closure, but I just didn't expect to see him again, and I thought where they ended it earlier was just right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they went to the well probably one time too many. I agree.
Yeah.
It kind of lost its luster, I think, towards the end. As well, what didn't ring true to me was that we haven't heard or seen much of Will, obviously, because his character died. But as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't clear that Alicia was still holding on to that so deeply over the last 2 seasons. She probably was, but it just seemed to come out of nowhere for me. And that's what do you think? Maybe I'm wrong.
I think I disagree because, I mean, there was the whole storyline this year, I think it was January, February, where she found out that Eli had deleted the voicemail.
Yeah.
She really went into a funk for those episodes. So I think even though she didn't mention him a lot, I think she did think of him a lot, and I think Julianna really did a great job of invoking the memories of him without actually saying the dialogue.
Yeah, oh, that's fair enough. I take that point. The other thing I was going to highlight that I loved was the slap. And this is very divisive. A lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. I loved how it tied in with the pilot. Anything to do with Christine Baranski is already a highlight. We'll talk about her in a minute. David, was it you that wrote that really great article about Christine and the finale? Yeah. So we'll go through that because that was fantastic. But I loved the slap in that corridor out the back. What did you guys think of the slap?
I loved it. It was kind of out of place in a weird way. Maybe it was the lack of dialogue, I don't know, but that's the moment that really sticks with me when I think of the finale. And I read an interview with the Kings where they couldn't decide who would do the slapping. They thought maybe Grace, maybe Jackie, but I'm glad they went with Christine Baranski or Diane, because that's really what made the most sense for this specific episode.
Yeah,
I loved it too. I really loved it, and I think we were all expecting when they kept saying it was going to come full circle that we would see the press conference again and see something different in the press conference. But the slap, I never considered them revisiting a slap, and it was just such a kind of brilliant, unexpected way to end the series. So I loved it. I didn't love exactly how they got there throughout the course of the episode, but the moment itself was really impactful.
Yeah. And I think the moment that actually impacted me more than the slap was when Peter reached for her hand and she turned away from him. I think that was even better, but no one's even talking about that.
No one's talking about that. Was great because we all just want Peter to just go away. Yeah, it's not a great character. Chris Noth did a brilliant job of his character, but it's a character that we love to hate. Look, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I don't know if you agree, but I just think the whole trial storyline that went over the last few episodes with Tashioni's husband and all of that stuff just did not play well for me at all. I just hated it. I really almost hated it. And to say this about one of my favorite shows of all time is really hard. But let's be negative for a minute. What did you guys think of the whole trial storyline?
David, was it you in the forums that mentioned it should have been a trial about the election scandal? Is that you?
I echoed that. I think there were some people that said it first in the forum, but there were numerous people in the forum saying this would have been the perfect opportunity to bring back that Peter rigged Alicia's state's attorney race and the election, and that could have been the trial at the end of the series and really involved Alicia more. It seems so obvious that they should have done that, and I can't for the life of me figure out why they did this instead.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm not a super fan like you guys are. I don't really remember this murder trial at all. I don't even know if it was part of the show.
I don't. Yeah. No.
I don't remember it at all either. I don't think it was in an episode. It might have been, but if it was probably a generic case of the week, or it was entirely created new because I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think they should have done the election scandal.
Yeah.
That would have been
like a missed opportunity.
It does. It's actually I'm just thinking about the forum posters because some of those guys and women in that thread are brilliant. They really know the show back to front. Like someone like Atypical, I think he or she, I don't even know who Atypical is. Sorry. They said that it should have been about the election fraud and has been saying that for a while. And I think it really would have rung true if it was about something to do with that rather than this murder trial that seemed to come out of nowhere. And the whole like all the scenes about it just didn't work for me. Even the actors that were brought onto the show, to play the characters in that storyline, even Eli suffered. I think for me the only one that I really enjoyed, and I've forgotten the actress's name, was the woman who plays Eli's daughter. She did really well out of it. But
Sarah Steele.
Yeah, thank you, David. So I'm really a little bit disappointed about that. And there's something else I want to talk about, and then I'm going to just open up to you guys in case I've missed something. But I want to talk about the other huge mammoth elephant in the room, and that is the complete just ignoring of Archie Panjabi. And I know why they did that. I get it. There's something weird happened on that set between her and Julianna Margulies, we're not allowed to talk about it, I guess. No one's ever going to bring it up. We might hear about it in years to come when they do a revival of the show or something. But one of our best forum posters, Graham O'Neill, has a really good post in that thread about the finale and the show generally, about how it just really rang false for many of us that she wasn't even referenced. She's such an important part of that show.
Yeah, I think season 1, season 2, season 3, Kalinda was my favorite character by far. You know, the baseball bat, the leather boots.
Yeah.
Somewhere around season 4, I started being iffy on her, and then the whole BuzzFeed article came out about how they've never shared a scene together since halfway through season 4, I guess. And then I started paying attention to that, and it started affecting the way I was watching the show. And I don't know what happened, if we ever will find out or not, but it's probably a dark place in the show's history, is the whole what happened to Kalinda, what happened to Archie, because the show, I think, ultimately was not helped by that scandal.
Yeah. David, what do you think?
Yeah, and even it would have been great if they mentioned her in the finale, but there was that scene in the second to last episode where Alicia's kind of mock cross-examining Peter, and they start rattling off all the lovers that they've had, and they don't even mention her there, and that was like the big focal point of the Kalinda character, and it was like, oh, come on, like you can't even say the character name. Was really disappointing.
Yeah,
interesting.
And Graham O'Neill, our poster, he even goes as far to say, do the Kings not even realize how important she is as a character to us as the audience? I mean, like, they brought on other characters to kind of take her place, and in the last season or two, we had Luca, who was a really great addition, and Jason, who I'll talk about in a minute. I didn't think he was a good addition. But, you know, Archie Panjabi was the first to win an Emmy. She was the favorite character for many people that I spoke to about the show, and to not even raise her. Can you imagine how you would feel if you were Archie Panjabi? I don't know. Maybe we just have to move on. But it really didn't. It didn't help.
Right, and especially when.
Oh, go ahead, Marcus. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, especially when Josh Charles comes back, it brings back all those memories of the first, 4 or 5 seasons. So that made it almost worse in a way.
I was just gonna say, I don't think the Kings don't care about the character, because she got a really, if not well crafted, they dedicated a lot of screen time to her character and her send off in the 6th season. I think there's just probably something really thorny in what happened backstage that tainted them even bringing the character back up.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And the son too. The son didn't show up there at the end. And I don't know if the actor's busy doing a movie. I mean, he did show up in that party episode, but I thought that was weird that he wasn't in the trial with Grace. Yeah,
that didn't help either. But okay, so we have been a little negative, and which is
positivity.
Fine. Let's be positive, because it really hurts me to be so negative about The Good Wife. I, for one, just to speak for myself, have been banging on about The Good Wife for years, and when I first saw the pilot, I came to the show a little bit late. I remember that it was Tom O'Neill who said, Rob, you might like this show, you should give it a shot. And I thought, it's on CBS, it's not going to be something that I would like, and it's about a wife, and it's not going to be for me. That was completely wrong. I was totally in love with it from the very beginning. And let's talk about some of the positives about The Good Wife. Before we move on to the show generally, is there anything else about the finale that you guys want to raise?
Yes, not the trial itself, but the interrogation of Gary Cole by Luca.
Yeah.
And Diane's face when that was going on, and then the walkout. That was probably the best moment of the whole season. It was just absolutely fantastic. And I know they had hinted about an affair very, very subtly with Megan Hilty and Gary Cole. But there is some confusion whether there was an affair or not, and I think this was confirmation of that when she just walked out, because she knew in her heart that he had an affair.
Yeah, that lost me a bit. What did you think about that, Dave?
I don't think, or I hope to think, that he didn't have an affair, because the relationship between Diane and Kurt was one of the really bright spots and less cynical moments of the show throughout its history. So I'm hoping it's not true, and I also don't see a basis in it plot-wise in terms of Luca and Alicia really wouldn't know for sure, and they were just using it as a ploy to undermine Kurt on the stand. So I'm hopeful that it's not true, and that's the way I'm thinking about it if I'm thinking of how the series goes. I hope not. It's one piece of hope that I'll hang on to from the finale. But something else I really like from the finale, just to kind of wrap up our talk about it, I like that Alicia ends up alone in terms of not picking a man, that she actually finally leaves Peter, and Jason was never a good match for her as a character. So I'm really glad that even though she chose to be with him and he kind of stood her up, that she doesn't end up with him either. I thought that was really the right way to end that character in the romantic side of the show. So I was happy about that. I thought that was the right choice.
Also, how great was Julianna in this episode? The scene where she's talking to Matthew Morrison and she's like, "Oh, you want me to smile like this?" I mean, it's just she's so great. And then we could talk about Christine Baranski now before we move on from the finale, because I think David's right. This is her episode. It was just perfect for her, and you could take it away.
Yeah, we talk about her every year, or I certainly talk about her every year when she's nominated, and it's the same kind of story every time, that her episode is always good, but she's always subtle. The character is always so restrained and polished, and it just can't stand up to kind of the dramatics and gravitas of some of the other tapes. But she finally has that, she has scenes where she's yelling, she storms out of court, she slaps Alicia at the end. It's such an Emmy bait episode that they better not screw it up this time and just give her the damn Emmy already, because I can't. If she goes Emmy-less for this role, it'll be a really dark spot on Emmy history, in my opinion.
I was starting to worry too, because she didn't really have a quote Emmy episode this year.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the Kings were like, okay, we need Christine Baranski to win an Emmy. We're gonna write the best scenes for her in this episode.
Yeah.
But it also could be Julianna's episode too if she gets back in.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with both of you. Christine Baranski's been nominated every single year, and A Good Wife actor has won every single year except for last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the fact.
Yeah.
So hopefully this year, the final year, that someone will win. Julianna's going to be really competitive, but I'm hoping for Christine Baranski. Everybody loves her. She's so popular as well, just generally amongst her peers, that she has a very good chance now that they have like an excuse to give her this award, given her performance in the finale, and just to say goodbye to Diane generally. So fingers crossed. But talking about the actors, if we want to move on from the finale and just talk about the show generally, that's one of the greatest things about The Good Wife. That's the legacy that it will leave, is the number of performances, the number of really A-plus actors that joined the show, either as recurring or guest stars, or just as cast members. And I could rattle names off for the next hour, but thinking of someone like Carrie Preston, who was a pretty good journeywoman actor. She was on True Blood and other shows, and she really made a name for herself on this show. She won an Emmy for it. Martha Plimpton won an Emmy. Someone like Anna Gasteyer, who was an SNL alum. When you said, in my opinion, I immediately think about her character, the judge, making everybody say, in my opinion, every single time they speak. Yes. And I love that. I love that. I'm very familiar with What to Do in Court, and that kind of thing is hilarious. So they're the three that I wanted to raise. They're all women. I don't think that's a coincidence. The women on this show really shone. Marcus, tell me, what actors did you love from the show?
I'm blanking on her name. I hope you know it. Meryl Streep's daughter, the blonde.
Mamie Gummer?
Gummer, yeah.
She's great. Every time she came on, the manipulation that went on with that character, so fun. Dennis O'Hare is probably my favorite judge. Judge Abernathy. I really like David Paymer in this episode, the finale, as the judge. I have to think. There was just so many
judges.
John Noble was a great guest star a few seasons back.
Yeah.
What about you, David?
You covered most of them, but I also wrote down, I'm looking at the names I wrote down because I went to it was a daunting task. I went to IMDb just to look at all of the guests that they've had, and the list just went on, hundreds of names. But Anika Noni Rose was so great. I don't know if you remember in like season 2 and 3, Wendy Scott Carr, like such a brilliant antagonist. And I also wrote down Nathan Lane. I loved his arc in, I think it was like season 5 when he formed a partnership with Carrie. I just thought that was great and really kind of against type role for him.
Yeah.
And they were so good at doing that, kind of casting against type and bringing out some really strong work in their guest actors.
David Hyde Pierce just occurred to me. What a great arc that was. He should have won the Emmy, and he didn't even get nominated. That's how crazy that
was a shame.
And you know, also, like, there's so many judges, we could talk about them forever, but someone like Vincent Curatola, who was on The Sopranos, he's not a very well-known actor, but whenever he was a judge on the show, I really loved it. And then for this year, Gary Cole should be very high on the on the list of Emmy voters when they're marking off their ballots. If he will be on it, I'm sure he will be. He did a great job as Diane's now husband, and you know, he's been nominated for Veep, so I'm hoping that he might get nominated for this.
Yeah.
So, you know, and Blair Underwood had an episode this season, and I really loved it. He was great. In that one episode, he got to go back to a courtroom after 20 years of being on LA Law. So really, the guest actors on this show, this is like the Law and Order of the current decade, because Law and Order back in the day had every single theater actor in New York City join the show, and yeah, that they're going to miss The Good Wife just as much as us viewers. So we're kind of running out of time. I just wanted to move on to let's talk about. I think we've really raised that we love the work of Archie Panjabi and Christine Baranski, Julianna Margulies, even Josh Charles. They all made a really great impression on us. I thought we would just highlight some of the other characters that we loved. I'll go first just very briefly and say that Matt Zuckery has been so great on this show. I must say a little underused, but he had a really great storyline last season where he was in jail and he had that whole storyline to contend with. He really shone, and he should have been nominated for an Emmy, and I'm going to miss him and his character.
Yeah, season 6 was fantastic for him. Season 7 is great for Alan Cumming. He's almost a lead this year. He had so much screen time. But of course, Julianna was the best. Can you imagine this role played by anyone else?
No way. No. David, what about you? Anyone else that you wanted to raise?
You really covered the two. I just would like to really bemoan how little Matt Zuckery had to do at the end of the season, and even in the season finale, his scenes were almost afterthoughts, and that was sad. But yeah, all those characters and everybody that we've really talked about, even like Gary Cole, was a character in season 1. So they did a really great job of kind of maintaining all of these characters over the course of 7 seasons and expanding them.
And by the way, the Emmy voters received like a CBS FYC mailer with all the different shows, and on the back of the Good Wife one, it lists who CBS is really pushing for guest stars. It's really interesting who's here and who's not here. For guest actor, Michael J. Fox, Jerry Adler, Blair Underwood, Dennis O'Hare. They're not mentioning Gary Cole. I mean, he'll still be on the ballot, I assume, but he's not on this list that the Emmy voters are receiving this booklet. And guest actresses are Stockard Channing, Mary Beth Peil, they play the mothers, Sarah Steele, and Nikki M. James.
Huh. Okay. Well, there you go. The mothers, by the way, Mary Beth Peil and Stockard Channing, always a welcome sight to see on any episode. And even Chris Noth. I mean, his character Peter Florrick was a pain in the ass, but he's a great actor, and he brought a lot to the show, especially in the first few seasons. So, man, there is so much to miss when talking about the actors. But let's move on and talk about our favorite episode of all time. I bet we're all going to say the same one.
Of course.
So I'll go last so I can give you guys the opportunity to talk about what I expect you're going to say. Let's go to you first, David.
I'm actually going to... I knew we would all say the same thing, so I tried to pick something different.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to go with the episode before the one we're probably all going to talk about, before hitting the fan, outside the bubble, where everybody... Yeah, where Diane finally finds out what the hell's going on with Alicia and Carrie, and Alicia and Carrie are setting everything up to try to leave in a few days. I just thought that episode, not just as a showcase for Baranski, but just setting all the puzzle pieces in such a way, did such a brilliant job setting up Hitting the Fan that that episode wouldn't have been so successful had they hadn't had that precursor. So yeah, Hitting the Fan, but I'm not saying it.
Yeah, I mean, for mine, it's Hitting the Fan. I mean, that was just the pinnacle, perfect episode.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 15 minutes, I felt like that was the episode, and then the credits start, and I'm like, wait, it's just starting?
Yeah.
But I guess a second place one would be Mind's Eye from last year. Alicia was sick, and she was having these weird visions. It was just really fun. It was one of the Robert and Michelle King episodes. They always did the best ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hitting the Fan has such a special place in my heart because I've watched it so many times, and I've had the privilege of talking to Josh Charles about it at length, and I've analysed it, and I just love every single thing about that episode. It's one of the greatest episodes of TV ever. Really, I really believe that. The music, the way that it was shot, the performances. Josh Charles was nominated for an Emmy for that performance, so that's what he submitted. It was really the high point of The Good Wife. It was season 5. They were just hitting their stride like never before and never again.
That was the best season.
It really was. And, you know, that's the season that where Will was killed, episode 16. That's another really good one. But I'll just say the pilot as well. I loved the pilot. It was a really good episode. Like, it really just got me hooked, and I thought, what is this show? This is not a network show. Like, this is not what I'm expecting. It's so sophisticated and interesting and nuanced and well written and just beautiful to look at. Yeah, so there's probably plenty more, but they're the ones that stick out in my mind as well. And look, finally, I thought we would wrap up with just talking about what this show meant to us as a whole. I've pretty much already said it, so I thought I'd just go over to you guys and you tell me how you're going to remember The Good Wife and what it meant to you.
It gave me faith that network TV is not dead. It could still be really, really good. The writers have to be up to par, and the Kings absolutely were. You know, I'm kind of like you. I didn't watch it at first. I kind of was a latecomer. It was the Emmy nominations in season 1 that made me realize, oh, I guess I should watch this show. So I kind of went into it like begrudgingly. But I'm so glad it did, because if it never got those Emmy noms in season 1, I never would have watched it. I really wouldn't have, because I have, you know, too many other shows. So Thank you, Emmys, for putting the show on my radar, and I hope the Emmys, you know, give it at least something for its goodbye farewell season.
Yeah.
What about you, David? What are your final thoughts about the show?
Yeah, just like you said, Marcus, and really pushing the boundaries of what a network show could do and how good a network show still could be. I don't know what the heir apparent to The Good Wife is on network TV. I haven't seen it yet, really, but that'll leave a legacy as one of the greatest network series of peak TV time, and also just as an acting showcase. Like we said earlier, so many even just character actors in really small parts. Like, we didn't talk about this for the finale, but they brought in 2-time Tony winner Sutton Foster for a 15-second moment on the stand, and they did that a lot with a lot of really fantastic theater and character actors throughout the course of its run. So it's just always such a joy to watch the show and see who is going to pop up. So that's really the lasting legacy for me as well.
Yeah, and you know, it's true. I don't know if we'll ever see a show like it again on network television, because these days that kind of stuff is really just where you would find it on cable and on streaming services, and the broadcast networks are doing their own thing, and they're doing it very well. There's a lot of excellent shows on broadcast. We're not trying to be broadcast snobs, but a show like The Good Wife it's really once in a lifetime, I think. And finally, I just want to also say Julianna Margulies is one of the greatest actresses of our time, and that people are going to say, oh, that's just hyperbole. It's not. She's already won 2 Emmys. She's one of the most, if not the most, nominated SAG performer, and she really was just the highlight of that show, probably of everything and everybody. Probably the only other thing about it would be the Kings and their writing. So we'll miss her most of all.
Yeah, she won a 3rd Emmy too for ER. So she's, you know, she's great. But the Kings have a new show. I hope everyone watches it. It's coming out June 13th. It's called Brain Dead. So I hope, fingers crossed, it's as good as The Good Wife was.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for your time today, and we will no doubt be hearing more about The Good Wife as we get closer and closer to Emmy nominations.
Thanks, guys.